Hi, this is Alex from f2p.com, and I have the pleasure of reviewing Neverwinter, the new MMO from Perfect World, developed by Cryptic Studios. This is the press beta access that we've had this evening. We've pretty much been given full access to the game for over the weekend. So you're going to be able to kind of have a look at some of the videos that we've done of the various features. I'm going to go into quite some depth with some of them, so you can really get an idea about all the features that the game has to offer. For those that don't know, Neverwinter is basically from Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game, set in the setting of the Forgotten Realms, which was created by Ed Greenwood, one of the campaigns for Dungeons and Dragons, one of the most popular campaign settings as well, and has had a number of offshoot games that have come from that world, most notably Neverwinter Nights, Neverwinter Nights 2 and the Baldur's Gates series. But here we have the newest addition to that group, Neverwinter. There's going to be various videos. This first one that we're going to do is focusing on character creation. I have had a little play around with it. I know that a lot of people on the forums and things, when they're looking to play MMOs, especially the role player collective, are really interested in seeing what kind of character customization options there are. Something I feel that's actually quite overlooked when people do these kind of beta videos. So I'm going to try and do it quite extensively. If it's not really something that you're interested in and you want to check out the gameplay or other features such as the Foundry, then we have other videos that you can kind of skip to anyway. I'm going to go through the details of the various races available, and there are currently 3 classes that we can play. As you'll see, we have the Priest, the Warrior and the Rogue. So we're going to kind of go through the details. You'll see these kind of things. These are your racial traits. I'm going to give you an overview of all of these first before we actually go into the character customization. You'll notice that there is quite a lot of crossover. Some of the pages we will skip through, just so that the video doesn't take too long and you can kind of skip to the points that are interesting. We'll put in the comments if there's a particular race that you're actually wanting to see what the customization is like for that character. We'll put notes in the comments so you can skip to that area in the video if that's kind of what you're interested in. I know a lot of role players are kind of into that thing. I myself am a role player. I'm also actually a dungeon master for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign set in Forgotten Realms, so this game is something I've been just dying to get my hands on. And I'll kind of speak about some of the other things that we come across. So to start with, as you can see, every race has its own traits. These will obviously help you out throughout the game. Presumably some races are more suited to a particular class than others, but from what I've seen so far, there isn't any restriction as of yet. Whether that will be the case with future classes and future races, I'm not sure. If my memory serves me correctly, I think some races in D&D do have some restrictions to what classes they can choose, but I may be talking absolute rubbish there. It's been a while since I've had to create a character in it. But anyway, so we're going to have a little flick through these. So this is the half-elf. I mean, the actual racial traits don't shift between being male or female. So this is obviously your dwarf. See, as I was saying, you have increased resistance to knock and repel effects. I suppose that could benefit you in many different situations, as either a priest that needs to be able to stay on his feet, or as the warrior that needs to stop other people getting to them. So maybe they're not quite as geared towards a particular class after all, but we shall see. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of builds and specs and cookie cutter type characters that people get used to, and that seem to be the best builds in the game after a while. But for me, I'm not interested in any of that. I am a role player at heart, so that's why I care more about what colour skin my Tiefling can have, and what beards my Dwarf will be able to put on show. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is probably a good video for you to watch. Otherwise, like I said, if you're more into your action and you want to see the PvE, then you've got those other videos as well. So yes, so that's your Tiefling. He's kind of a bit of a chaotic character as far as the lore goes. Very, a lot of people don't really trust these characters because they look like demons, so it's hardly a surprise. So there you go. You've got the Halfling. Typical fashion, you'd kind of expect them to be good at being, you know, the roguish types. Grants 3% chance to deflect incoming attacks, but again, it could cross over to anything, so I don't think it matters too much. One of the things with the game, as we'll hopefully see demonstrated and has been talked about by the developers, is that there's a lot of crossover between the features in Dungeons and Dragons, particularly the 4th edition, which is the current edition. There is a new edition that's being worked on. But the current edition 4E, they've taken a lot of features and mechanics from the actual tabletop and placed it directly into the game. So later on, when we kind of see the PvE, you'll see things such as dailies and encounter powers. You'll also see that in a moment when we go on to the class selection. It shows you a little bit of a snapshot. So I think I've kind of done the half elf already, haven't I? Yep, sorry. So then we've got the elf, so elven accuracy. That's the main one. So I mean, I'm not entirely sure whether particular classes, particular races are going to be beneficial for particular classes. Me personally, I would pick the character that I wanted to play because like I said, I'm a bit of an RP nerd. Human being the last type of character I play because everybody plays a human and they're boring. But anyway, we're gonna flip through now. So that's kind of an overview of all the racial traits that the different races have. And here you've got class selection. So as I said, we've currently got 3 different classes that we can choose from beta. I believe there are more. There are dozens of classes available in Dungeons and Dragons 4E, so I expect that future expansions we will be seeing a lot more. I have no idea, looking at it, what that might be. Interesting. So again, here you go. So you've got the Trickster Rogue, and kind of gives you an overview of what their particular abilities are. It's so far they've gone for the Trinity. You've got your DPS Rogue, you've got your Healing Cleric, and then you've got your Guardian Fighter as your tank. So, but here we can kind of see the abilities that the Rogue has. So they see it says Combat Advantage. Again, that's something directly from the 4E mechanics. And as you'll see there, bait and switch, top right says encounter, that's an encounter power, action points. So these are all little things that kind of are taken directly from the game. How they come into practice while playing, I've absolutely no idea. I've not got so far into playing yet. This is literally as far as I've got. So those are your rogue overview. Devoted cleric, so obviously your healer. But they're not just healers, they're kind of pretty good damage dealers when they need to be. As you can see, we're coming up to, we've got Flame Strike. So they're, they can hold their own, which is kind of needed these days, when you're going to be questing alone. I imagine, as usual, the Priest is probably one of the easiest classes to play to start with. They might be clothies, but they generally can hold their own. And then finally, the Guardian Fighter, our brute, our tank, and he's got the type of skills or feats that you'd come to expect a fighter to have. See, it's kind of typical enforced threat. These are kind of things we've seen in other games, so there's obviously going to be that kind of relation between MMOs that are already out, tried and tested mechanics. But as I said, you know, they've got the mechanics from Dungeons and Dragons as well, so that should be quite interesting. The next section is the ability scores. This is an absolute true tip of the hat to Dungeons and Dragons. At the beginning of any character creation for the tabletop, you roll dice to find out what your strength, intelligence, constitution, wisdom, dexterity, and charisma are. Again, all stats that you have on a traditional D&D character sheet. And it kind of gives you an overview of what each of these will do. Also, it shows you at the top there saying, as a Guardian Fighter, your primary ability is Constitution, your secondary abilities are Strength and Dexterity. And it's got them highlighted in purple and blue. Now, this is quite interesting. At the bottom, Racial Ability Bonus. So you get to choose one. You get to choose an extra bonus, one of these stats. And these are +2 to everything. So I'm going to presume that is particularly because it's the human. The humans are generally the kind of well-rounded off races. So if Constitution is what you need as a fighter, then you're kind of probably best going for the +2 Constitution. Now, as you can see, you can re-roll your score, so you want to get that value as high as you can with these two kind of secondary. Not to say that these are unimportant, but you know, the likes of charisma measures force of personality, persuasiveness, and leadership. You know, it's not necessarily as useful for the defending character. So you can keep re-rolling. I'm just wondering whether an 18 might have been the highest that we could get. It doesn't seem to do anything other than that, switches those around. So it's kind of it gives you a couple of options of what you might want to do. So whether you want to bring your Constitution down and put some of your other skills up slightly. But if that's our best, then we're going to go with Constitution +2. I'm not going to create this character at the end. Once I've shown you the overview of the different characters, we will just kind of flip through the appearance presets. I'm going to skip this for now, and we'll come back to it for each race, both male and female, so you can get a real in-depth overview of what the available customization is like. As I said, you will see quite a lot of crossover with the hairstyles and the tattoos and stuff, but we'll kind of go through that when we get to it. Background, origins, I think this is just a little bit of fluff for your character. How it affects you in game, I have absolutely no idea. Something I've noticed from my little play around with the character creation screen is that so far, from what I've seen, all the different races can choose to be from any of these places. Now, as far as D&D lore goes, there are some places that are kind of more well known for a particular type of race, particularly Myth-Drannor, which is the Elven Kingdom. So you'd expect a lot of Elven players to choose Myth-Drannor, but you know, that's not to say that that's where you have to be from. So as well as being able to choose your location, you can choose, you know, what type of character you are. So you are a patriot of Myth-Drannor and revel in its ancient mysteries. You are a protector of the wild and majestic forests of Commonthor, and you were trained in one of Myth-Drannor's military families. So again, how this affects you, I don't know. Maybe it might open you up to certain NPCs. It's the kind of thing. There you go. Just noticed there. Each section is for flavour and has no effect on gameplay. So I don't know whether you have an editable biography in game on your character sheet that people can view. I don't know. I wish I'd have seen that before I made the comments previously. But anyway, so you've got your deity here, affiliation again. All these available deities are directly from the Forgotten Realms campaign. A few crossovers with D&D and the other campaigns, but there's a few original ones that are specifically for the Forgotten Realms campaign. And I'm always a big fan of Kelemvor. He's the basically the god of death. And before we kind of skip on, I'm going to show you the overview. So this kind of lets you have a quick look at everything. So there you go. Oh. There you go, you can actually see which button I'm using to speak over the mic. So you can put a biography on, which is fantastic. I'm not entirely sure what the character limit is on there. I'm sure it won't be enough for some people. People always like to complain they want to have a novel written in their biography. One of the things I do like, which I've already tested, is what you can put with a character name. Particularly in kind of fantasy type games. It's always nice to be able to have your L's with apostrophes. Something that a lot of games kind of overlook. Here you are able to kind of have a single named character, or you can give them a first name and a surname, or you can also use a hyphen, as I will demonstrate. So as you can see, I will hit begin adventure, and that will chuck me straight into the game. Whether you would have to type out all of that for somebody to send you a tell, I have absolutely no idea. But I think we can all agree it's considerably better than Chris Swordhand. So just kind of a few. There we go, a few different random examples. A few armor smiths, chandlers. Chris seems to be quite a popular name. So yeah, so that's kind of the basic overview of the character creation. Next we're going to jump to appearance. As I said, there's a lot of crossover, so I'm not going to be clicking back and forth. The video will cut in and out, and you'll be able to see what options there are for the different races. So picking up where we left off, we had the human male. As you can see from the appearance presets, there are different options if you want to just jump straight into game. Some people are kind of not really interested in customization, but it's nice to kind of have a basic foundry of, you know, what you like the character to look like. Surprisingly customizable. There's a lot of preset options. And then there's some scaling options at the bottom. Now, in fairness, it's a massive step up from a lot of the other MMOs that are out there. A lot of MMOs is pretty much a selection of, 8 faces and 10 hairstyles. So they do actually have the scalable options. For me, I like to be able to kind of go more extreme. I like to be able to push the lips right up under the nose and make some really ugly looking character, or give them really fat heads and, a little bit odd looking. But it seems like they've played it kind of safe. They're not that extreme with the scaling ability, to the point where on some of them you can barely even notice that there's any difference. So especially in game, when the character's a lot smaller, you'll barely be able to tell. But still, I think we can all agree that a little is better than none at all, and they do have quite a lot of options. So as we're seeing, you've got head shapes here, but you can see they're all kind of, it's so subtle that I don't think anybody would kind of notice, apart from the last two, where it's kind of got a snarl or an underbite. I think they're subtle, whether with enough playing about, and they will actually make a big difference. It's hard to say, but for now we're just gonna go through it. So we'll flick through the different hairstyles. So you've got quite a few to choose from, and you can also choose the hair colour, which is always nice. Again, nothing drastic, kind of traditional looking colours. Some slightly better than others. So we'll go for that one. We'll go for the dirty Ned Stark look. And so then we'll keep going. And this is pretty much what I'm going to do for the rest of the video. The stuff that you've already seen doesn't really differ much between the characters, other than I expect different ability bonuses that you can select from in the ability scores. The ones that give you a +2 to one of your stats. I imagine that the different races, they will you know, be a little bit more limited for the other races. So for now, we're just kind of going to go through. We'll have a bit more of a zoom on this. The eyes, I don't think you can really tell that much. See, that's supposed to be blind. That's blind in one eye. Again, you can pick the colour, so it's not bad, but it's kind of it's pretty subtle. It's pretty hard to tell, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So you've got some basic eyebrows. I think you can maybe change the colour of those, so you can have them different colour to your hair. Then you've got different facial hair. So, and again, you can have a completely different coloured beard to what your hair is. So, oh, it seems to reset. Oh, so when you go from none, it resets it to grey. So we'll select some more interesting colour, and then we'll just have a quick flick, which is what I'm going to do on the other appearances when we go through the other races. So I have no idea what that is supposed to be. I think it's interesting, but you've got your more basic ones, so worn, weathered, rough, old, and here you've got the various skin tones that you can pick. All kind of traditional hues for humans. Horns, can't have them for humans. I'm presuming probably only the Tieflings that can have them. And then you've got various tattoos. Again, you can choose the colour. A massive selection here, which is pretty cool. Given that there's various different skin tones, some are going to stand out better than others. But this is something I really like, and I'm glad that they kind of took the time to give more colours. Let's go a little bit more straight on. And onto scars. Actually, we'll take the tattoos off so you can see the scars a little bit better. So let's have a look. So you've got none, cheek left. This is as far as I can zoom. So one of the eye. And you've got something down here, but I can't see how I get to it. Oh, it looks like it's just clipped, so that's the top of that one. I'll see if it's on the other pages. In send in a bug report, and you got a bug up there. Given that we are kind of pressed, but they've also asked us to highlight any bugs that we find. So it's still in beta, so this kind of thing's to be expected. So we're on to the face scaling. As with everything I've kind of already mentioned, it's you can tell that there's not really any extremes to it. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. And you could maybe make your character look a little bit taller and stuff. So I don't know, playing about with it, you might be able to get some interesting features. But you can kind of have a look at what kind of options you've got. There you go. So just have it so that you can't see. Bushy eyebrows, it's quite nice. Nose height. Nostril size, because that's always important, nostril size. So I think if you play around with it, you can get some nice features. He looks kind of different. He's an interesting looking character. So it's not too bad. I think there's a little bit more extreme in places would have been great, and but I think play around with it and you can kind of get a good idea of get some original looking characters. This for me is the most disappointing thing. You know, he is actually quite heavy in comparison to some of the others. Toned and then slim, and then again you've got your thing. You can hide the armor here, so you can check how he looks, which is probably a better thing to do. Waist width, so we can kind of make him look quite ill. Short and stocky, little arms, little big arms, with big thick hands. He's looking a little bit like a gorilla now. So that's your kind of your basic look. You can kind of have a look from behind, checking out these Calvins. But yeah, I mean, kind of once you've got armor on, you're not going to see half of that detail, unfortunately. But it's not like you don't see people running around with no clothes on all the time. So yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to see the details of people's bodies a lot more. That is pretty much the customization. I'm going to flip through quickly the other races. Again, some of the stuff is very similar, so I will skip over that entirely. Particularly, it's the kind of hairstyles that do differ between the classes. Obviously, we've got the horns, and we'll check out the skin colours and stuff, so you guys can all get an idea of whether you can make the type of character you want to. Okay, so we have the female human now. Head shape pretty much the same. Eyes, tattoos, scars, face scalings, all very similar to the male human. So we'll just quickly flick through the various hairstyles. If we remove the armor, and this isn't for me being a pervert, but there is sometimes clipping where you can't see the back of the haircuts and stuff. So we'll kind of give you a little look through. Braided. So there you go, I think you'll agree, some cool little hairstyles there. Different hair colours, similar to the male human. The thing that kind of annoys me a little bit about this is, I think the heavy, it's not terrible, but kind of when armor's on, I think it's a lot harder to tell. Be nice to have kind of more of a barbarian woman. Although in fairness, she's not looking too bad. I suppose with the body scaling as well, you might be able to kind of tweak up some of the shoulders and stuff, turn her into a bit of a butch, which I think is cool. You know, if you're playing a female guardian warrior, then chances are, you know, you're not going to kind of have a slight build. You're going to have some muscle to you. You know, it's not too bad in comparison to some of the other games that I've played and the other MMOs and the character customization. This is considerably better. I think it's always a complaint that you kind of see on the forums sometimes, that, you know, sometimes people want their female women to kind of look a little bit heavier, you know, not just all tiny waists and big boobs. Although I'm wondering, yeah, we can really pump those up. So, you know, the option's still there for those that need it. You've got heals. Excellent. Doesn't really seem to do anything here, but I'm presuming depending on what shoes you get. I suppose we should kind of check out these features, because it does seem to be some different ones in comparison. Wow. She's not somebody that you're going to mess with, I don't think. And anything else? The rest of it looks to be kind of similar. So there you go. There's your scaling. I'm actually quite happy with that. I think that's quite cool. I definitely wouldn't want to cross her on a night, especially. Oh, so you know, I've got different complexions, so you can go for cute, young. So there you go, a little bit different. So probably does pay to kind of look into these other sections, but I know the scars and the tattoos, they're exactly the same, so we can skip over them. Horns unavailable. Eyes, again, exactly the same. Your eyebrows, they're there you go. Still no bushy eyebrows, at least. So that is the female human. Okay, and we're now on the female elf. I've had a look at the head shapes. There's a few that are kind of do make her actually look slightly different in comparison to the humans. So it's probably worth having a little look through. The lips seem to go a little bit fuller as well, although that's one crazy underbite. We'll have his au natural. Hairstyles. Again, there's going to be kind of bits of crossover from the female ones, but there may be some that are slightly different. So I'm going to go through them all again, just so you can kind of get an idea of what they look like, especially with the ears. Okay, and again, it's slightly different. You've got some kind of green hues for the hair colour, which is nice. So we'll stick with that. Eyes. Not massively different In fact, I think they might be exactly the same. So we'll skip over to eyebrows again. I think they're the same as the females. Complexion, we'll have a look at different colour skin, see if you can get anything different. Surprisingly not. So you can have green hair, but your skin tones seem to be pretty much the same. It seems a little bit more limited with the complexion choice you can get. Tattoos, scars, exactly the same. Face scaling, exactly the same as the females. I presume there may be something on there for ears, maybe? It would appear not. You can do lip fullness, which is nice. Cheek size. Body shape, so let's have a look. Again, so that's the slim elf. Elf heavy. Doesn't really look particularly heavy, that's kind of like a normal build. And then toned. There's very little between these, in my opinion. But, I don't know, I guess elves are naturally slim races. And now we'll check out the male elf. Okay, male elf. Have a look through the head shapes. I think we'll show him because there's some that do kind of make him look a little bit creepy. So, you know, there's some kind of use to them. I don't know whether they necessarily reflect the title's focus, maybe. And then, of course, Snarl with his black teeth and underbite, which is always great. So, hairstyles. Again, probably going to be very similar to some of the others. There might be some crossover between lady ones and men ones. Who knows? They are elves, and you know they are quite an effeminate race anyway, in my opinion. But hey ho. So we'll have a quick flick. Again, hair colour. You've got your various greens, and we'll go for red. So, there you are, your various hairstyles, eyebrows, kind of same as humans, bushy. No facial hair for male elves. Complexions. And again, kind of the same type of thing. Nothing really jumping out that might be any different. Let's have a look at what they look like. So the male elf is a little bit heavier. In comparison to the female elf, there really wasn't that much of a difference between them, but whereas here, that's actually not too bad. And then you've got your body scaling on top of it. So there you go for your male elf. Okay, we're now on the male half elf. So it's your hybrid between humans and elves, and that should be kind of obvious with the different appearances that you can get for this race. Not much of a difference between some of these, so that's kind of where the human side comes in my opinion. But yeah, let's have a look at the hair. I think it's kind of pretty much the same as most of the others for the humans and elves, but yeah, we'll have a flick through it for those that really wanted to see what the half-elf looks like. So, here we go. So as we can see with the half-elf, they don't actually have the green hair available to elves, so it is more closely associated to the humans than it is the elves. Eyes the same, eyebrows the same, bushy eyebrows, and facial hair. So they actually do get to have a little bit of facial hair in comparison to their elven brethren. Only very limited options, so I think we're gonna go for this guy. Yeah, he's looking pretty tough, pretty rugged. Complexion, again, not much difference. I think that's just gonna do your skin color. Horns, nothing. Tattoos, all the same. Okay, so we're not seeing much difference, so I'll just check out the body shapes. So that's half-elf toned. They're actually pretty stocky. And then slim. So all over, not a bad, well-rounded character. And now we have the female half-elf. So head shapes, again, not much difference. And again, no green for the half-elf. We'll have a full look through the spectrum of colours, as I'm not sure if I've done it for some of the other characters, but I think you'll get a good idea anyway. So, not much else, but we'll have a look at the body shape. So it's toned, heavy, and slim. Again, possibly slightly slimmer than the human. Hard to say until you start playing back with the body scaling and stuff. But you can tell there's a little bit of beef on her there. Okay, so these are your halflings. This is the female halfling. I thought I'd start with its scrolled out so you can actually see the size. You can see that they're kind of squat little characters. Nothing in comparison to the dwarfs, who I believe are a little bit shorter. But anyway. So again, hairstyle, colours, pretty much the same as the humans. Not really looking that much different. I think it's all the same kind of hairstyles. It doesn't really look any different to the humans, or the elves, or the half-elves. But for those that wanted to know what the halflings look like and have skipped to this point in the video, I suppose we should go through them all for those people. But yeah, if you've watched through the entire video, congratulations for sticking with us this long. We're kind of seeing a lot of similarities, so I think with the last two races that we've got, and I think I've saved the best to last. We've got the dwarfs and hopefully the tieflings, so hopefully they'll be interesting to check out. Eyes, same. Eyebrows, same. Complexion, cute. Skin colour, same as humans. It's pretty bright. And then we'll check out the, she's quite squat and bulky. Okay, moving on. So, this is the male halfling. I'll check out the head shapes. So you seem to have two choices of facials here. You've either got mutton chops or none. So quite limited. But you do seem to have this devil facial complexion as well, which I'm still not sure I get. I'm not sure what the reference is to that. And finally, the body builds. Okay, now we have the male dwarf. So you would expect there to be a couple of different options for this character, especially with the beards. Traditionally they have quite elaborate beards, so we shall see. Can't exactly see where the hair colour is. It's under there? Not entirely sure how to change. Ah, okay. It's because he's got no hair. Alex, you fool. There we go. So, again, human colours. But it's nice to see that you can have both different colour facial hair as head hair. It's just not really a dwarf without a beard, is it? So as I said, it's nice to see some elaborate beards for the dwarf, especially the epic beard. Complexion, not much to it really. Skin colour, as we've seen. You can have grey dwarfs, which I think, if my Forgotten Realms lore doesn't fail me, is the Durgar. Durgar? Yeah. So that's kind of quite a traditional type of dwarf, like a subspecies of dwarf from Forgotten Realms. So it's nice to see that that is an option. Again, all the same kind of things, and then we've got the bodies. So he looks like a little tubby guy either way, so slim, doesn't seem much, just kind of a little bit shorter when he's heavy. Okay, and here we have the female dwarf. So one of the presets you can see already is one of the Durgar. So we're just going to jump straight in with that. And we'll check out the head shapes. Hair, I think, again, going to be pretty similar to the other humanoid races, but we'll give you a look for those that have tuned in specifically to see the female dwarf. So, again, same hair colours as most of the humanoids. Eyebrows a little bit bushy for the women in comparison to the other female races. And you've got various complexions as well. So, all the same kind of thing that we've seen in the other races. And so finally body shape. It's actually heavy set, toned and slim. Okay, so finally we are onto the Tiefling, which for me is probably the most interesting of all the races. There should be some variety of appearance features that we've not seen on the other classes, particularly and most obviously the horns. So again, you've got your different presets, but we'll jump right in and see what we've got. So we'll start with the horns. So there's not that many options. You've got straight horns, or you've got curved horns. And then complexion, fair, rugged, and elderly. Now, skin colours, unfortunately, again, only basic colours, slightly redder hues, but not by much in comparison to what I would have possibly liked to have seen, but still, it's a nice variety. So the horns, eyebrows, they don't have eyebrows, and they only have one type of eyes. However, they can have white or black, which looks quite cool. I imagine that's probably going to be what most people are going to go for, just because it's a little bit different in comparison to the other ones. So personally, I think they look a little bit weird with hair and horns, especially this hairstyle. But we'll have a look through the head shape. few extra colours here. So you've got purple and blues for your hair, which is quite nice. A little bit different. Unfortunately, I think because most of the races have very similar hairstyles, I imagine seeing most tieflings with these purple or blue hues, or black maybe, just because they're a little bit different to the others. So I think for the horns I'm going to put the straight ones maybe. Just trying to see what might be better. I will stick with those ones. So you got bald, of course. Sorry, I decided I wasn't spinning them for some reason. Here we go. So seemingly considerably less hairstyles for the tieflings than there are the other classes, presumably because of the clipping that would occur with hair going through the horns. So they decided to keep it to the shorter, flatter hairstyles, which is fine, I suppose, kind of to be expected. Let's see if there's any adjustment for your horns in here. Well, it isn't looking like it, no. So again, let's just check out the tail that, I don't know, I'm not sure, I think that's a bit of a sloppy clip through there, but maybe with armour and stuff on, it might look a lot better. So, toned, heavy, which is quite heavy set actually, and slim. So all in all, not bad. Finally we have the male tiefling, and they only have one style of horns, it would seem. Interesting. I'm not sure how defined by Forgotten Realms law that is, whether the men have less elaborate curled horns or not. But there you go, that's the way it goes. And again, we can quickly see that there's some limited options to what hairstyles we can have, but again, the same purple and blue hair colours, so it's not too bad. Personally, I'm a big fan that with the horns of the bald look. I think the bald characters look pretty cool. Surprisingly, they've gone for that one. There's quite a bit of clipping through the horns there. I'm not sure they're getting away with it, but I think wild is quite cool for the tiefling actually. I quite like that look if it wasn't for the clipping, but hey ho. again, you can only have one type of eyes, but some different colours. Can't do the eyebrows. No facial hair allowed. Skin colours, the same. So that's quite nice, they're kind of orangey. And again, pretty much the same from what we've seen before. So finally the body shape. So that's the Tiefling toned. Heavy, which is pretty heavy in comparison to the others. Compared to that, that's quite a dramatic change, which I personally like. I think those kind of options are great to have. And I guess that's everything. That's pretty much taken us to the end of this video. I think we've gone into the character customization quite in depth, probably too in depth for some people, but you got to have a bit of a look at everything. If you had, if you're from the forums, the official Neverwinter forums, and you've been wondering whether you can make your character look like you envision in your head, then hopefully this video has kind of helped you see. So we've explored all the available races. There is a coming soon race. I'm not sure what that is, although seeing from the various packages that you can pay to have, it is a free-to-play game, but there are some subscription models. I think the $100 subscription, well, it's not a subscription, sorry, it's a $100 kind of pre-order, which gives you loads of different things, and I think it gives you Drow, if I'm correct. So that may be the Drow. Well-known figure, Drizzt, was a Drow. So I'm thinking that's what that final race may end up being. But hopefully you enjoyed this video, found it useful. It's kind of different to what a lot of the other videos on Neverwinter are, but I think there's a couple of people that were really interested to see what kind of customization you got. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you in game soon.